Hello, my name is Pernilla Sperhult, as you might already know, and I thought that I would go over some of the design decisions that I made for the Colorless project. So, Colorless is a visually expressive 2D platform puzzle adventure. While there is a strong single-player game, Colorless has a focus on cooperation, and the idea is that players play the game with their friends. In general, the game is about bringing all the stolen colors back into the world, but more specifically it's about closeness and love. The core gameplay is co-op puzzle solving and cooperative melee combat, either with an AI or with a friend. Players can choose between single play and multiplayer. Single-player mode provides an AI character with which to cooperate. The AI has been hurt and has difficulty moving about, and this is where the closeness comes in. The player needs to protect and guide the sick AI character through the levels. By staying close to them, the player character in turn regenerates health quicker, can perform special moves, and also use the AI's special abilities to solve puzzles. Hugging, holding hands, and sharing energy are major elements in this mode. In multiplayer mode, players work together to solve puzzles and fight their way through packs of enemies. Here, both characters have the same abilities that the AI character has in single-player mode. They are highly dependent on each other to keep their energy levels up, solve puzzles, and perform special moves together. The main focuses of this mode lies in co-op melee fighting and puzzle solving. So the main features are closeness and cooperation. The mechanics of the game support these features by having characters hug each other to share and replenish energy, help each other up edges, holding hands to make the AI run faster, perform special moves by entering the same button sequences at the same time, and solve co-op puzzles together. The game also has a puzzle system involving the use and mixing of colors for both puzzle solving and melee combat purposes. Players collect colors from certain spots all over the levels, which they then use to manipulate their environment. A small bush, for example, becomes a climbable vine or grows fruit, depending on what colors you paint it with. The colors are also used to give player characters skills such as underwater breathing and powerful So to get into the actual game and get to do all this stuff, on the start screen, players choose New Game or Load Game if they've played before, and simply jump right into the action. It's about 3 clicks in total. During the first 5 minutes, other than taking in the scenery and parts of the quirky narrative, players are introduced to the game in a forgiving environment where they learn how to use their different skills, how to handle the AI, how to help each other over obstacles, and how to fight together. For example, players learn early on that by hugging, they regain energy. They quickly learn that rather than collect life-replenishing objects, which there are none, staying together means life, and that staying afar comes with certain risks. In this forgiving environment, tutorials are integrated right onto the level. No special learning levels or interruptions of gameplay. The tutorials are located at points of interest and places right before new moves are going to be needed. On to game cycles. The by-click decisions in Colorless are the basic moves of running, jumping, and fighting. Your risks are falling or getting beaten, and the reward is progress. Every 30 minutes or so, a boss battle comes along and players need to utilize what they've learned during the level to think out fighting strategies. The risks are death, the rewards are continuation of play and additional skills, since beating a boss means unlocking a new color. About once an hour, players encounter a new multicolor puzzle. These are the more intricate puzzles where you have to mix several colors to solve it. Since you get a new color each level, these puzzles become increasingly advanced. The risk here is getting stuck. The rewards are progress, knowledge, and possibly secret unlockables. After playing for a couple of hours, players might want to share what they've just experienced with a friend if they were in single-player mode. The risk here are them turning off the game if they have no one to play with. The reward is the multiplayer mode experience. Players take risks when they are exploring the levels or testing what moves to use on what enemies and puzzles. So they explore the game and sometimes find areas which they can't access, and they understand that they need additional tools. For example, in this puzzle, there is an ice block in the way and the player can't get in. In later levels, they find the fire color and encounter similar ice blocks, which they then can melt. This shows that exploration takes place throughout the entire game, not only on the current level. The penalties for taking too many risks when exploring are most of the time loss of energy or player death. The rewards for testing new moves on enemies and puzzles are, other than continuation of play, knowledge about how to use skills or what kind of solutions to tight spots you can expect later in the game. For example, what we're seeing here are the players performing a snaring move on an enemy. On the next enemy, however, this same move might not be as successful. Learning through trial and error may sometimes result in a loss of energy, but repeatedly not learning from your lessons often result in player death. As the game progresses, it becomes increasingly harder. Every enemy and every puzzle has a number of iterations throughout the game, and they become harder to beat. Where there were just a couple of platforms and safe to fall, there might later on be many more platforms with no safety nets. Where an enemy had little or no armor, suddenly they have shields or swords. No one piece of enemy or puzzle design is one-time use. Players fail if they are being too risky, make the same mistakes over and over, are unobservant, or make illogical decisions. Even then, there is either a friend or the AI character who can revive you. If both players fail, they restart at the beginning of the level or at the save point. All levels in Colorless has its own specific theme. Each level has its own set of environmental mechanics like switching the lights on and off in the mechanical lab, swimming in the dark tunnels of the underwater cave, navigate through blizzards and skating on the ice fields, or skipping from shadow to shadow in the blazing sun of the unbearable desert. To underline the very different atmospheres of the levels, they each have their own sets of enemies, puzzles, and specific graphic and audio design. Each level introduces new enemies and puzzles that are both native to the environment and iterations of previous creatures and contraptions. Some puzzles require several colors to clear, and enemies appear in new and upgraded forms with more lethal moves and more health. As players progress through the game and get used to the controls, they do get better at navigating the platform challenges. Mainly though, it is the player character that get better. Each new color gained means a new skill. The transition points are at the end of each level where a boss battle occurs, and bits of narrative are presented. After each boss fight, players are provided a new color with which to solve puzzles and fight enemies and combine with previous skills. At the very end of the game, after they've beaten the last boss and saved the world and each other, or if it was in single-player mode, saved their loved one who has been sick and injured all this time. When they've done this, players get to see that the bad guy wasn't such a bad guy after all. They get to see all the colors being restored to the world, and after the cutscenes and credits, they return to the start screen and their save file, and they see that they have unlocked a big bonus. Their save file has been altered, and they have gained the means to explore the recolored world and solve the previously unsolvable puzzles. Because throughout the game, if players have been exploring, they have encountered a couple of areas which they cannot access. But now when they have cleared the game, they get the key skill that is needed to access those areas. In this, the game encourages replay because players can now go back into the game feeling powerful. The scenery has also changed since all the levels are now colored. Mainly though, trying multiplayer mode if you've run through in single play or vice versa will give players a new experience. None of the modes teach you how to play the other, and the player decisions are very different from each other. So, the fact that the end game gives players a very good reason to replay the game, and because our puzzles span over the entire game and not just individual levels, our gameplay encourages retention because players always have something to come back and complete. As part of this is also a percentage of completion. That lack of completeness is constantly shown to the players every time they start the game. The two different modes of gameplay encourages viral growth. Players tell their friends who tells a friend who tells a friend about the game because they want to have someone to play with, especially since the multiplayer mode isn't secondary in any way and gives a full game experience. The friends might even be okay with sitting around watching without playing if the controllers are busy. Colorless is a puzzle game, and as such, it is interesting to watch and talk about even if you're not playing. The reward for telling friends about the game is getting someone to help out, to solve puzzles, and develop fighting routines together with. And that was all I had to say about my design decisions for this project. Thank you for sitting through my presentation.